Hi everyone, it's Nicole, and today I'm bringing you my Hoe-Athon TBR and Recommendations video. So Hoe-Athon is right around the corner. I'm so excited. I have a ton of books to go over, so I am just going to get started. I'm going to start with my TBR first, and then I'm going to go to the recommendations. Everything will be timestamped, so if you want to watch one or the other first, you can definitely choose at your leisure. But I'm just going to go through the prompts, how they're listed on Storygraph, and just go from there. I will link everything, the Twitter where you can find the bingo boards and the scavenger hunt board, and also the link to the Storygraph challenge if you do have Storygraph and you want to participate in that challenge. A lot of these books that I'm going to be talking about in the recommendation portion are going to be listed on the Storygraph for you. So if you wanted to head over there, don't worry about, either taking screenshots or worrying about that you're going to forget, because I have put all of these books that I can think of on the Storygraph challenges. So you should be able to see them. So the first prompt is to read the group book, and we have 2 books for that prompt. We're tentatively going to have a discussion, maybe possibly for both books, one per week, because Hoe-Athon does go for 2 weeks. But the first one is 15 Inches by Madison Faye. You can't find Madison Faye's books on Amazon because she was kicked off of Amazon for stupid reasons, but you can find her books on Eden Books. And this 15 Inches, if you subscribe to her newsletter, you do get it for free. And the second book is Den of Vipers by K.A. Knight. I don't know much about this book, but I do know that it's a reverse harem and it's pretty dark. So I'm excited to read this one. I have already read 15 Inches by Madison Faye, but I could read it again. It is a super short, very steamy, over-the-top romance, and it's exactly how it sounds. 15 Inches. Yes. So if you read Den of Vipers, you obviously have it as the group book. Also, you have it as for Under the Scavenger Hunt. There is the prompt Three's a Party, and that's for a polyamorous love scene, which that is obviously going to have it in there. And this also can fit under forbidden or taboo romance, just because I believe our main character, she's sold to this group of men. So it's kind of dark in that and forbidden in that aspect, that she is, sold to them. So that can be used for multiple prompts. The second prompt is Lions, Tigers, and Bears. Oh my, read a shifter romance. And for that one, I have a couple that I'm interested in. The one that I am for sure going to read is going to be Hot and Badgered by Shelley Lawrenston. This is a shifter romance between a grizzly shifter and a honey badger shifter, which is interesting. I've read bear shifter romances, but I've never read a book with a honey badger shifter, so this is going to be exciting. I've never read this book, so I don't know if it fits any other prompts, but I'm very excited to read and find out. So the next prompt is Happily Ever After. Read a fairy tale or mythology retelling, and for that one I'm going to be reading Neon Gods by Katie Roberts. This is a Hades and Persephone retelling. This came out at the beginning of the month, and I've been holding off on reading it for the Hoe-Athon, but I'm so excited. I'm so excited to be reading this one, because Katie Roberts is just a favorite. She writes steamy, So the next prompt is to read a book with a disability representation. Now that could mean, a physical disability, a mental disability, or any kind of chronic illness that a character may have. And I was having trouble finding one that wasn't already like a part of the core books that I wanted to read. So if anybody has any recommendations for me, I would love it if you would let me know those. So let me know in the comments if you have any steamy books with disability representation. The next prompt is to read a book with LGBTQ+ representation. And for that one, I'm reading Pink Slip by Katrina Jackson. And I just want to read this little bit of the synopsis, and you can tell why I wanted to read this book. It sounds so freaking cute and steamy, but it says Pink Slip is the first in an erotic suspense spy comedy series that wonders what James Bond's receptionist life might have been like if James Bond had a wife and they both wanted to shag the receptionist. Oh my god, I can't wait to read this book. It's gonna be fantastic. It's gonna be great. The next prompt is Out of This World. Read an alien romance. And for that one, I have 2 books that I kind of want to read. One I want to read is Jewel of the Sea by Tiffany Roberts. This is book 2 in her Kraken series. I read the first one a while ago, and I do want to continue on. Yes, the heroes have tentacles, so that also fits for the tentacle fucking prompt on the scavenger hunt board. This also could be used for monster smut because he is a monster. Kind of. Krakens are monsters, right? And also I'm very interested in Red by S.J. Sanders. This can also work for the happily ever after prompt because it is a fairy tale retelling from Little Red Riding Hood. So in this book we have Ari, and she lives in this sanctuary settlement on this planet where they have this alien species called the Ragaroo, and they look like wolves, like standing, like they're huge wolves, but they have 4 eyes instead of 2, and they're drawn to the color red, and they have very good hearing, so they're like, don't make a sound. And so the reason why it's kind of like a Little Red Riding Hood tale is just not that her hood is red. She constantly has to wear a hood because her hair is bright red. So that's where, you know, that comes into play. For the next prompt is to read a forbidden or a taboo romance, and for that one I'm reading Sinner by Sierra Simone. This is the second book after Priest. It follows a main character who is going to be a nun, and she kind of wants one last, you know, hurrah before she takes her vows. So it's kind of where the forbidden or the taboo comes into effect. And everyone that I know who has read both Priest and Sinner, they think that Sinner is the better book. So I'm very excited to be reading that one. And the next prompt is School's Out, Dick's Out. Read a book set in a university or a school setting. And for that one, I'm going to be reading A Taste of Her Own Medicine by Tasha L. Harrison. So this follows a recently divorced single mom. She's been with her husband for 13 years, and she's decided that she needs to be able to support her kids. So she decides to go back to school, and you know, she's looking around and she's so much older than all the kids that are there, and in walks her professor, and he is very, very attractive. You know, even though sparks are flying, she wants to kind of keep him at a distance because there is a slight age gap going on, and then there's also obviously the student-teacher relationship. And I haven't read anything by Tasha L. Harrison, and so this one was recommended to me by B. They said that they really liked this book, so I'm really excited to be reading it. The next prompt is Monster Smut. Read a book with monster smut, obviously. A little caveat for this one of the main characters has to be completely non-human, and that can be as tame as if you want to do like a vampire, you know, they kind of are non-human, or you can go as crazy as, you know, demon, ogre. But for this one, I have a few books that I want to read. I have 3 in total. One is Ensnared by Tiffany Roberts, and just from looking at the cover, one of the main characters is a whole spider, a for real spider. The arachnophobe in me is cringing, but then also it's Tiffany Roberts. I really, really love her writing. She writes really great, you know, sci-fi or alien romances, and I have loved everything that I've read by her, so I'm just like, I'm super intrigued but also very scared. Next one is A Lady of Rooksgrave Manor, and this is a whole series of novellas where our main character, Esther, she takes on the position of a maid in Rooksgrave Manor, and there's a number of different monsters or people of ill or unusual repute live there. And I believe, I'm not very sure, but I think that there's vampires, I believe there's ghosts. I don't know all of the manner of creatures that live in Rooksgrave Manor, but I'm very excited to find out. I'm hoping I could at least, if not read the entire series, at least read book 1. And another one that I'm interested in is His Darkest Craving by Tiffany Roberts. So we have Sophie. She is taking refuge in a cabin in the woods, and she feels this presence in the woods surrounding her. It says that she glimpses dark shapes and shadows out of the corner of her eye. She feels like phantom touches. So I'm not exactly sure what type of monster we're dealing with. This could work for the next prompt, depending on what kind of monster it is, because you know, it does say like phantom touches, dark shadows. So this could work for Spooky Dick, which is the next prompt for it's to read a ghost romance. And so if it's a ghost or some kind of non-corporeal entity, that could work for Spooky Dick as well. And for the next bingo board, the list of prompts is going to be the author bingo board. The first one in that one is to read a book by R.M. Virtues. And for that one, I want to read Drag Me Up. And this is a Hades and Persephone retelling as well. So this could work for the happily ever after prompt if you do want to double up on that. And for the next prompt on the author bingo board, it's read a book by Tasha L. Harrison. And for that one, I'm reading A Taste of Her Own Medicine. The next prompt is to read a book by Katrina Jackson, and for that one I'm reading Pink Slip. And for the next couple of prompts, I don't have set books for these, but I could, if I do have time, at the end of the readathon, I can pick up, anything by these authors, and I know I would love them. So the next prompt is to read a romance by Alexandria House. The next is to read a romance by Christina C. Jones. The next is to read a romance by Madison Faye. And I do have a couple of novellas on my Kindle from her. So I think one is Cherry Pie. I have another one that's also a polyamorous, so that could work for one of the scavenger hunt prompts. So I have options. The next prompt on the author bingo board is to read a book by Katie Robert, and for that one I'm reading Neon Gods. And the next prompt is to read a book by Jack Harbin, and for that one I'm reading His Beauty, and this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and that can easily be used for the happily ever after prompt if you want to double up. But I do also want to read Worship and Parker, because I've heard amazing things about both of those books. And the last prompt on the author bingo board is to read a book by Sierra Simone, and for that one I'm reading Sinner. Now I'm just going to go through the prompts and just make recommendations for you. I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. I'm just going to skip the group book for obvious reasons. So for the prompt, Lions and Tigers and Bears, oh my, read a shifter romance. Definitely one of my go-to shifter romances is Slave to Sensation by Nalini Singh. This is book number 1 in the Psy Changeling series. This takes place in a dystopian Earth where the Psy have eradicated emotions because they believe emotions are one of the key things that, have created wars and led to destruction. So they just want to be completely unfeeling. So their race has brilliant scientists that have, done that. They're completely emotionless. And then there are 2 shifter packs in this. Well, later on in the series there's more, but there's 2 dominant ones, and that's a leopard changeling shifter pack and also a wolf pack is in the series as well. So in this book, the romance is between a member of the Psy race and then also the alpha of the leopard changeling pack. Another great shifter series, the first one, Fire in His Blood by Ruby Dixon. This is, again, a dystopian Earth. A rift appeared in the sky, and these dragons have just came through. And these dragons can shift back into human form, but their dominant form, their battle form, is the dragon. And they communicate telepathically, and there's something about being on Earth. It kind of interferes with that. It drove them mad. They don't understand what's going on. Just makes them angry, and when they get angry, they get violent, and soon the dragons basically decimated the world. And these people, the survivors, are living in settlements, and they basically are afraid for their lives. And we find out that to kind of get these dragons to calm down and to find something to focus all this crazy, telepathic things that they are bombarded with from being on Earth, is they need a mate. That's where the romance comes in. And so slowly as the story progresses, these dragons that are, just on a full rampage, they slowly get their mates, and, it becomes safe in the world again. For the next prompt, Happily Ever After, read a fairy tale retelling. Even though I haven't read it yet, I'm recommending Neon Gods because I just know it's going to be fantastic. For the next prompt, read a book with disability representation. I have Getting Schooled by Christina C. Jones. This can also work for Schools Out, Dicks Out because it does take place in a school setting. And our male main character, he was a soldier and he's missing the lower half of his leg. Next book I'm recommending is Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. In this book, our male main character, he can't talk, so he speaks in sign language. Next book I want to recommend is Dark Lover by J.R. Ward. This is a vampire series. It's book number 1 in the Black Dagger Brotherhood. Our main character in the first book, his name is Wrath, and he has very poor very poor eyesight. This can also be read for the monster smut book because he's a vampire, but I really enjoy this vampire series. And another one I can recommend is Never Seduce a Scot by Maya Banks. This is historical Scottish romance, and in this book, our female main character, she is deaf. For the next prompt, read a book with LGBTQ plus representation. For that one, I can recommend Zenny by Rebecca Weatherspoon. Our male main character in this book is bisexual, and this is so good. I love this book. And another one I can recommend is Neighborly by Katrina Jackson. We have one couple who moves into an apartment. One is a boxer, his name is Calvin, and the other one, her name is Heaven. She is an artist, and they meet the neighbors, Tasha and Steven, and there's instant attraction between Tasha and Heaven. And for the next prompt, Out of This World, read an alien romance. First one I want to recommend is Toxic Desire by Robin Lovett. The first book is kind of like an enemies to lovers, which is really interesting. These two are fighting on this spaceship, and it is like being basically torn apart, and they have to abandon ship. So they get on this escape pod and they plummet towards this planet. They quickly realize that something isn't right. Everything on this planet, from the air they're breathing to the water they're drinking to the ground and the grass and the leaves all around them, they give off this aphrodisiac that makes you want to bang. The longer you go without it, the worse it's gonna get. So even though they're enemies, they're the only ones, so they help each other out. And any kind of alien romance by Tiffany Roberts, you're gonna love. I really enjoy her writing. Like I said, it's actually a husband and wife duo, so it's two authors, Tiffany Robert. There we go. One that I really love is called Claimed by an Alien Warrior, and they're not in space or on another planet, they're on Earth. It's just this alien warrior has been in captivity and been like experimented on and tortured, and he escapes. And she's the one driving on the road late at night and kind of picks him up. And of course they're on the run because there's this government agency that the ones that were keeping him captive want him back. Another really good one is Surrender to the Cyborgs by Grace Goodwin. Rachel goes into the Interstellar Bride program to escape a wrongful imprisonment. She wanted to trust in the justice system, that they would see that she didn't do anything wrong, but the people that want to put her away, that kind of rule everything, they're going to stop at nothing to make sure that she goes to jail and that she actually dies in jail. So the Interstellar Bride program is basically you go to this place and they put you under, and you have this very real but like hallucinatory dream, and you find your mate. And for her, it's two aliens. One's the alpha, one's the second. And so this could work for the polyamorous, you know, on the scavenger hunt board as well. Another great series is Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. So women are basically stolen, kidnapped from Earth, and they're on their way to be sold off in auction when the ship that they're on crashes and lands on this ice planet. And the bad aliens, the ones that kidnapped them, die, thank goodness. And they are rescued by the Sakui, who live on this ice planet. And they're big, they're blue, they have tails, and they have extra adornments on their bodies for pleasure. And it's very steamy. And a lot of the novellas, they're very short, sweet, to the point. But it's great. I love it. Read it. And for the next prompt, read a forbidden or a taboo romance. Honestly, anything by Madison Faye that you're going to read is going to be a taboo. We have Bait, which is a student-teacher relationship. Everybody's over 18, but it's still a very large age gap between the student and the teacher. Next one that I can recommend is Voyeur by Fiona Cole. This is also a student-teacher. The student works at this club called Voyeur, which basically people pay to watch the performers do certain acts, and it's not like they're having sex with the customer, it's just they're watching it happen. The next prompt, School's Out, Dick's Out. Read a book in a school or university setting. Like I said, Bait works for this one by Madison Faye. They're in Winchester Academy, which is a high school. Also Voyeur by Fiona Cole. Getting Schooled by Christina C. Jones, the one that I mentioned for the disability one. That's also takes place in a school, so you can double up on prompts there. And also Rami University series by Alexandria House. The first book is called Teach Me. We have our professor Nadia, and then we also have a retired football player and single dad. He goes back to school and she is his professor. For the next prompt, Monster Smut. Like I said, you can read Dark Lover by J.R. Ward if you just kind of want like on the tamer side, because it's about vampires. But if you want kind of a little bit more, you can read Treasure of the Abyss, which is book number 1 in the Kraken series. I'm reading book number 2, so that's why that sounds familiar. And yes, they have tentacles, which will check off the tentacle fucking prompt on your scavenger hunt board. For the next prompt, Spooky Dick. So the first one is called Halloween Boo by Sarah Spade, and it takes place during Halloween, so if you want kind of like during that spooky time. But also it's kind of like a Hocus Pocus retelling. You pick up on certain callbacks to the movie, which is really super, super cute. And then there's The Tenant by Katrina Jackson, and if you choose that book, you can check this one off on the author bingo board for Read a Book by Katrina Jackson. Also, if you read Rami University, that's by Alexandria House, and you can check that off on the author prompt board as well. So moving on to the author prompt, I haven't read anything by R.M. Virtues, so unfortunately I can't recommend anything, but he does have 2 books, Drag Me Up, which is the one I'm reading, and then What Are the Odds? Next one, Read a Book by Tasha L. Harrison. I'm reading A Taste of Her Own Medicine. Again, I haven't read anything by Tasha L. Harrison, so I can't really recommend anything, but that's the one I'm reading. There's a couple that sound good to me, If She Says Yes and In Her Closet. And then of course, Read a Book by Katrina Jackson. There was The Pink Slip, there was The Tenant for the Spooky Dick, and then also Neighborly, which is the Read a Book with LGBTQ plus representation. So you can double up. The next one is to read a book by Alexandria House. That could be the Rami University if you want to double up. Also, Them Boys series. The first one is called Set. That one is really good and amazing. Next book is to read a book by Christina C. Jones. And if you want to read Getting Schooled, you can triple up on that one. And that's the disability representation, Schools Out, Dicks Out, and Read a Book by Christina C. Jones. That's 3 prompts right there, 1 book. Next prompt is to read a book by Madison Faye, and you can read the group book, Read 15 Inches. So that's 2 prompts. And you can read Bait. That is The Schools Out, Dicks Out. That's the forbidden or taboo. Next is to read a book by Katie Robert. You can read Sacrifice. That is book 1 in the Bloodline Vampires series. That's LGBTQ+. That's polyamorous. It could be Monster Spunt. He's a vampire. Forbidden or taboo. There's a very fine line of dubious consent in that book. Also, Desperate Measures. That is book number 1 in the Wicked Villains series. That's kind of like the Disney villains getting their happily ever after, which could be used for the happily ever after prompt. A lot of books in this series, you know, they have LGBTQ plus representation as well. And then also Your Dad Will Do, which the series is literally called A Touch of Taboo, so you can read that for the forbidden or the taboo romance as well. The next prompt is to read a book by Jack Harbin. Again, I haven't read a book by Jack Harbin, but I'm reading his beauty. I also want to read Worship or Parker, like I said earlier. So those ones are the ones that sound really good to me. If you want to be able to double up on prompts, his beauty is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, so you can definitely work that in. And the last one for the author bingo board is to read a book by Sierra Simone. And I've only read Priest by Sierra Simone, which I really liked it. It's really good. It's a forbidden or taboo romance between a priest and a stripper. Yes, she's a stripper. So going into the scavenger hunt board. Now, scavenger hunt board is basically like if you find these things in your book, you can, on your TBR, you can cross them off. But if you want to be, very specific about the books that you want to read, I can definitely recommend. First one is Tentacle Fucking. The only book that I've read that has tentacle fucking is Treasure of the Abyss by Tiffany Robert. So I hope to read more because I really enjoy that. So if you have any tentacle fucking recommendations yourself, drop them in the comments for me. The next one on the scavenger hunt is Finger Fucking Good, and that could be either finger fucking or cunnilingus. And really, honestly, I think any romance book you read better have cunnilingus in it or any kind of finger fucking. Otherwise, what is the point? Toxic Desire, the one that I recommended for the Out of This World prompt by Robin Lovett. That one has cunnilingus and finger fucking. Ice Planet Barbarians has that in there. Also Dark Lover by J.R. Ward. So the next prompt is Banging the Patriarchy, and that one we're just trying to find books with pegging. And Zenny by Rebecca Weatherspoon, that one has pegging in it. The next thing on the scavenger hunt board is All Choked Up. That's any kind of neck play or choking. A Duke by Default by Alyssa Cole has this in there. This also could be kind of taboo as well because she's his assistant, so technically they work together. Also, there's an age gap, so this could be considered taboo. Go Deep by Rilsey Adams. This has some choking in there. This Go Deep really made me really like Friends to Lovers. She is a author of erotic romance. Her last book did very, very poorly, and she's reading all these reviews, these negative reviews, and she's spiraling, and she was just like, well, I haven't had sex myself in like 2 years, because ever since she broke up with her, ex, her friend, her best friend, makes this suggestion where she's like, you should have like a dick mentor or mentor dick, just to kind of, get like hop back on that wagon, kind of thing, where, if you have really, really great sex, it can transfer into your writing, and you can write a really great erotic romance. She kind of like takes him up on the offer, even though he wasn't really offering, because they're best friends and that's kind of weird, but he's literally the only one that she trusts, to kind of just have like a one and done kind of thing to help her in her career. But it's really, really good. I love it. The next prompt is South in Your Mouth, and that is any kind of hand job or blow job. Toxic Desire by Robin Lovett has this in there. Also, if you want kind of like a fantasy romance, A Heart of Blood and Ashes by Milla Vane. This one has a really hot, angry, bloody hand job in this book, and it's fantastic. The next prompt is Tighten Up Daddy, and this is for like when a man is about to come, his balls like tighten. So you see that a lot in romances, like his balls tighten right before he comes. Honestly, this is like, if you find it in your romance, great. But one book that I know for sure that has it is Go Deep by Rosie Adams. And that's just off the top of my head. I'm sure a lot of these books that I'm mentioning has this in there, but this is the only one that I know for sure. The next prompt is if you find a different way of saying like pussy or penis or anything like that in your romance, like check it off. Honestly, it's like any romance, it's going to be referencing the genitalia differently, and so just if it's kind of strange or out there or funny, just say yes. The next prompt is Three's a Party, and this is a polyamorous love scene or relationship. And if you read the group book Den of Vipers, this has this in it. Surrender to the Cyborgs by Grace Goodwin. This is a polyamorous male-male-female. Double Down by Susan Hayes. This is a male-male-female as well. Also, this can work for Out of This World. I don't know why I didn't mention that previously, but it's a alien romance. The next prompt is Slip It In, Slide In. This is if the two main protagonists are using lube in their any kind of sexual encounter that they're having. Again, the only ones that I know for sure off the top of my head is Go Deep by Rosie Adams, and then also Zenny by Rebecca Weatherspoon, because there's pegging in this one as well. The next prompt is Guts Rearranged Like a Home Makeover. This is like if the sex is so good, so crazy. Again, use your discretion. Use your discretion. The next prompt is To Rub One Out, and this can be solo masturbation. This is mutual masturbation, like they're watching each other. So Voyeur by Fiona Cole has this in there. Toxic Desire by Robin Lovett, or Go Deep by Rosie Adams. And the last prompt, last one, it's Chains and Whips Excite Me. So this is if you find a BDSM scene in your book. Desperate Measures, Wicked Villain series. Any book that you're reading in this series, a lot of the characters work in a BDSM sex club, so you will see a lot of that kind of stuff in that series. Alrighty, so that is basically it. That is my TBR, and then also my very quick recommendation video. Like I said in the beginning, I'm going to link the Storygraph challenge because those books will be on there. I know I went through this very quickly, so you don't have to worry about, like I said, taking screenshots or remembering or writing it down. I will link the Storygraph challenge in the description box, and all the books that I talk about and even more will be on the Storygraph challenge for you. So I'm very excited for this to be starting, and I'm wondering what you're going to be reading for the Hoe-Athon. So if you have made a TBR, whether it be a YouTube video, a blog, if you're just taking a picture on Instagram, let me know, and I would love to check it out. Go ahead and like my video if you did, comment below, and subscribe to my channel. You can follow me on all the social media platforms. The links will be in the description box below. We'll see you next time, avid readers.